not knowing him, being robbed of a brother, I always felt connected to him in a way, and that he was always watching over me. With Tad's Lighthouse, we care for vulnerable adults, and we watch over them. And so that's that symbolic, taking a lighthouse, which is watching over ships, coming to shore, and we do the same with people with disabilities. So that symbolism with the lighthouse, but then adding my brother's name to it to carry on his legacy, it was just a way to honor him.
This is the Buffalo Community Podcast, all about the greatest small town in the USA, the people in it, and how it all works together. Here are your hosts, Tyler Reese and Mark Benzer.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Another episode of the Buffalo Community Podcast. Another distinguished member of the class of 1999 from Buffalo High School.
I got to start asking that question before you start approving guests here.
Yeah.
I was tempted to say I wasn't a part of it.
Wear your Letterman's jacket.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a pretty good idea, actually.
But it's a distinguished class.
It is.
We have to rep.
We don't have to tell people. People already know.
Yeah. Where was I?
Jake Comee.
Jake Comee. Jake, business owner in town, very, very active in several different areas. We'll touch on all of this stuff, but Jake, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, who you are, where you're from, what you do?
All right. Well, I am Jake Comee. I own Tad's Lighthouse, which is a home and community-based service provider locally here in town. We have two community residential settings here in town, and we have several up in Stearns County as well. We have a basically a community residential setting is more or less a group home where we provide residential services to people with disabilities. We have 4 individuals in each of our homes. We have 8 locations now. We just opened up our 8th location up in St. Cloud just this last month. So it's an exciting time. Growth is happening within our business, which is always nice. Let's see. I am a father of a 11-year-old boy, and he's very active in sports in town. So running a 24-hour business and then running him to his sports, that is essentially all I do.
Yeah. Very much hockey-centric family. Correct? I mean,
Yes.
You guys are a hockey family. Mm-hmm. Keeps you very busy, as you mentioned. What's your role besides dad and cheerleader? You go a little bit
Uber driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It pays well, though. I'm assuming you charge him. And yeah,
boy. Yeah, that's my retirement.
Yeah.
All the collections I can have from running him from rink to rink.
Yeah.
Very much involved in the hockey. I serve on the hockey board for the Buffalo Youth Hockey Association. I also coach. I coach, winter this year. My son is a first-year Pee-wee, and so I'll be coaching, we're in tryouts right now. So help coaching whatever team that he makes.
Yep.
And then very involved in summer hockey as well. I coach AAA hockey for his age group as well. So nonstop, hockey is his world, and I'm happy to share it with him because it was a passion of mine growing up. So having that similar interest and to be able to share it with him and have that bond has been incredible. I love it.
Let's jump back to Tad's Lighthouse. Mm-hmm. There's some significance even in the name.
Yes.
So why don't you kind of give us the background and that? Yep.
So Tad's Lighthouse, the naming of it is named after my brother, who passed away when he was 4 years old. I was 9 months old. Obviously a tragedy in our family. But growing up, without him, always kind of had that, that empty connection. And and just that longing and wondering, what life would be like without him. But
without living with all these girls.
Yes, I do have 6 sisters. And after my brother passed away, I was the lone boy of the group. Which it was an incredible experience. Like being surrounded with all those girls, like shaped my life into what it is now.
Yep.
They've done a good job, like teaching me the ins and outs of how to be a respectable male.
Yep.
But anyways, back to my brother, not knowing him, feeling that kind of being robbed of a brother, but I always felt connected to him in a way, and that he was always watching over me. And, with Tad's Lighthouse, we care for, vulnerable adults, and we watch over them. And so that's that symbolic, taking a lighthouse, which is, basically watching over ships, coming to shore, and we do the same with people with disabilities. So that symbolism with the lighthouse, but then adding my brother's name to it to carry on his legacy and ultimately just carrying on his name forever, as long as our company is, going. It was just a way to honor him.
Sure.
And to, this is a family business. I founded it, and then my father, Steve, is a co-owner of it. My wife works for Tad's. A couple of my sisters do, as well as my mom.
Yep.
So
what was the passion of founding it? I mean, if you went back to your high school days, did you feel like this was going to be the direction that you were going, or
stole my question?
How did you?
Absolutely not. I did not think that this was going to be what I was doing for a career in life. I thought I was set to become a doctor. I wanted to work with kids, as a pediatrician. Tried the medical route. And I guess I'm jumping ahead.
Are you a doctor?
No, I'm not.
I thought I was jumping.
I'm
jumping ahead.
I'm actually a grad school dropout, so we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that. Talk about that.
Yeah.
What else have you failed at?
No, this all started back in high school. Mark, you might remember this individual, but it was a little girl with Down syndrome, Shannon Kidder.
Yep.
Nate, another 99.
Yep.
It was his sister, and I had the opportunity to work with Shannon in high school as a para, and fell in love with this little girl, and fell in love with this field, and always went back to it. I tried different things, but always came back to this field. This is really the only field I've ever truly worked in. Again, outside of a couple of, failure attempts at something else.
Sure.
But
learning experiences.
Yes, learning experiences. Learning what I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And it always brought me back to this field. And so, I was pre-med in college. I went to St. Olaf College, had the opportunity to go there and play some hockey. I was D3 hockey. And there I double majored in psychology and family studies, and then had 2 minors in women's studies, of course, the 6 sisters.
Yeah, right.
So it was a no-brainer there, right?
You aced that. You didn't have to go to the class.
Just test it out of it.
And then had a minor in neurobiology, and that was kind of segueing. They didn't have a major in that at the time, but I was fascinated with neurobiology and some of the disorders that went along with it. And then I set out to go to med school eventually. Mm-hmm. And while I was in college, I was working in group homes, for money. And so started out working with Shannon Kidder, and then was working in group homes while I was in college. After graduating, I took a job in Chicago for a short time as what was the name of the job title? I think a neurodiagnostic technician. I was basically the insurance person for neurosurgeons. And that was unbelievable. I sat in on brain and spinal cord surgeries, and I'd hook up the patient full of electrodes, or at like from head to toe.
Yeah.
They were just connected to wires, and then I sat in the surgery and read a computer. And every time that the doctor would get even close to touching a nerve, I would see, the computer screen firing, and I'd have to stop the surgery. I had more power than the neurosurgeon, which was pretty cool. Because, one little mistake can paralyze the person.
Sure.
So, I thought that was going to be really cool until
Sounds
it was, 12 hours in surgery, and,
You sneeze wrong and
couldn't leave.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then my, never actually saw any of my coworkers' faces. We were all just wearing surgical masks, and then the second the surgery was over, we'd all just part ways and show up at a different hospital the next day. And it wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Realized that, excuse me, really loved the social sciences and got away from the medical stuff. Then set out to go to grad school. And while I was doing that, I became a director in the cities for a very large group home provider, and oversaw a couple of group homes in the cities. And then was going to graduate school to get a master's in marriage and family therapy. And
You're very educated.
well, sort of, because I did drop out.
you did. I was going to say that.
But you still got education.
Very honest too.
Yeah. So while I was going to graduate school and working full time, and ultimately dropped out of grad school to start my company, and then haven't looked back.
And now you're here.
So now I'm here.
Yeah. Can we talk about kind of some of the specialty or the emphasis that TAD's provided for?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't want to pry too much, but also I think it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we initially started, there was actually a family here in Buffalo that had Huntington's disease running through their family. And they found out that through some community members locally here that I was operating group homes in the cities, and that I had a neurobiology background, and that is a neurobiology-based disease. And there was nowhere for these people to turn. And then the more I started investigating it, like worldwide, this was a problem. And so it was locally here in town that this family was just begging for people to help and to provide services, and they didn't know where to turn. And so I kind of got led to starting TAD's Lighthouse from a local family here in town.
Sure. And Huntington's disease, 30,000 foot. What is that? I mean,
so it's an inherited biological disease that the easiest way for people to understand it is to think of, so it breaks down the nerves in your brain, all right, to the point where you need to rely on people for total care eventually, and eventually it does take your life. But if you were to combine like Parkinson's with dementia and like MS and throw it all into one disease, like that's essentially what it is in layman's terms for people to understand.
Yeah. Well, thank God for people like you to be an outlet for people that is probably the worst diagnosis that they'll ever get.
Right.
So that there's somewhere to go. Mm-hmm. And what almost a fluke, I mean, because you were led to it, completely different path. So, I mean, I think that's amazing on how everything can come full circle of just, wow. If you threw a dart out there, no way, but it happened. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. That's really heartwarming. And actually, I had no idea all of that extra background of, holy cow, you are educated. Yeah. So that's fantastic.
Not just a hat rack.
Yeah. I don't know what that means.
No, I don't either. I heard it one time.
But You also own a building downtown.
Yes.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. So a lot of people still refer to it as the Aretha Franklin building.
Yep.
We did buy that building a couple years ago. I'd like to think of it as the Comee building now.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's rename it, right?
Yeah.
For way back when, I believe it was the Cohen
building, yeah.
For those people that have been around long enough to remember that. But it was a great opportunity for us. After high school, I moved away from Buffalo for a short time. Like 20 years, I guess. I can't believe we're like that old.
I know.
When it's actually a number that you can remember and it's accurate.
Yeah.
And it ended up in the Stillwater area, and I absolutely love the Stillwater area. But I always wanted to come back to Buffalo. It's a charming town, great place to raise a family and have kids grow up here. So always wanted to move back, and in doing so, just wanted to do something in downtown with a building, that thinking all right, Stillwater's a cool place, but Buffalo is an awesome place for people to come and wanting to have a part of that. So kind of was interested and still am in commercial real estate, and bought that building and just wanted to give it a facelift. And so what was a really big space that Aretha Franklin had, consumed the entire space.
Yep.
They were looking to downsize, and they still have a part of the building that they lease from us, but then turn it into, more storefront space for other people to have. And
Cutting and Leather, right?
Yep, Cutting and Leather.
So that one is the revamped one. She was also a guest.
Yep, she was a guest.
Yeah.
I love what you did with the street presence. I mean, that's what everybody's like, oh, Buffalo's so charming. And all the business owners down and the building owners on Division Street and even First Avenue, they're doing this facelift, and it's bringing back that charm. Everybody is there and are yearning for it. So
Correct.
Fantastic job. I really love it.
Yeah, and seeing what some of the other, just recently, it seems like all those buildings are getting facelifts, and it's so charming. I mean, that street is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so we're, I'm happy to be a part of that. And again, I co-own that with my father, Steve, and and my mom she's just got the decoration touch and put a lot of the the finishing touches onto the building and inside and out, and just happy to have that partnership, working relationship with my parents and other family members as well that work for TADS. But that building, so it's now 4 spaces. It used to just be 1. We have 3 storefronts in the front, and then we have the back, which is the 2-story. That was supposed to be where TADS Lighthouse, our corporate offices, were going to be.
Sure.
And then we had, a bistro, excuse me, that loved the space and wanted to lease it and have the wine bar, and that space is actually coming up for lease. They ended their lease, and that space is going to be available. And it's beautiful on the inside for those that have been in there. Yeah.
2 stories and
2 stories. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. I want to go back. I had a question. I'll load it up, and then you kind of touched on it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You left Buffalo, came back to Buffalo. You said because it's a good place to raise a family. It's a nice, charming town. I guess you always knew you wanted to come back to Buffalo. I guess expand on why you did come back to Buffalo.
Yeah, well, I'm very close with my family, and I mean that even ties into our business. It's a family-run business. What sets us apart from other businesses in this field is we bring a family feel to it. Like our employees are the people that we provide services to. Once they're a part of TADS Lighthouse, they're family, and we try to teach them give them that, especially the people that we provide the services to, that family feel. A lot of people, they have professional guardians. They're, they don't have any family that they're close to. They don't have anybody. So we want to provide that experience for them. But I am very close to my family. A lot of my siblings still live in the area. And just being a part of that for, having my son grow up with cousins that are close and grandparents that are close by was really important. And this is like you said, it's a charming, safe community, a great place to raise a family. And we're excited to be back. We built a house here in 2019, finally closed on it in 2020. We closed on our house a month before the pandemic. Yeah, probably shouldn't bring that up, but so that was a little weird time to come back. Yeah, we were excited about
seeing people.
Seeing people and being involved in the community.
And on your back in surgical masks.
Correct. Yes, and back in surgical masks. Yeah. So get to know people really well. Yeah, eyes up, right? Yeah. So, but it's been incredible to be back and see people and
Well, you bring a lot to the community. You're one of the hardest working people that I've ever met in my life. So I'm really glad to get you on this podcast to tell the story of Tad's Lighthouse and you and your family. So I'm glad it worked out for you to
thank you.
Come by.
It's truly an honor to be your guest.
Yeah.
So thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming in. For the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Tyler Reese.
I'm Mark Benzer.
And I'm Jake Comee.
Thanks for listening to the Buffalo Community Podcast, produced by Edlin Media. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts.